Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Coin Republic podcast. My name is Shura Bacharya. Today, I have with myself the CEO of Blocksquare. Blocksquare is an award winning team developing the world's leading blockchain based real estate tokenization system. They're headquartered in Slovenia. They are developing a state of the art system in close cooperation with Medius, the leading provider of enterprise software solutions in the region. Their mission is to power hundreds of platforms across the globe, connecting investors to real estate opportunities in their region. With their real estate tokenization protocol, entrepreneurs can start dis, um, dis, digitizing real assets into a fraction within a fraction of cost, while their white label platform offers the quickest way to launch an online marketplace. For those who don't know, we have done sort of a real estate tokenization podcast prior to this as well with Yale Tamar. If you want to check out that podcast, it's available in our playlist as well. Without a further ado, it is my honor to introduce you guys to the stream with the one and only Mr. Makram Hani. Welcome to the screen, sir.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine. So you're at the moment, where you from? Slovenia, where you are at?
I'm currently in Dubai.
Okay.
Actually, the CEO of Blocksquare, Denis Petrovicic, is in Ljubljana, Slovenia currently. I'm the COO of Blocksquare, and I'm in Dubai
You're
currently.
the COO. Okay, I didn't read that right.
Exactly.
Fantastic. A quick correction there. Okay. So, well, for congratulations on achieving the world's first notarized tokenization of a real estate property and its integration with Slovenian land registry. Can you elaborate on the significance of this milestone for Blocksquare and the real estate industry?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So, um, what we've done here is we've tackled the elephant in the room since everyone started tokenizing. Um, at Blocksquare, what we've done since the beginning is we tackle the process and the methodology the right way. We are pro compliance, and we believe that everything should go in a regulatory framework that does work, so that institutions and mainstream um, can interact positively and can create a energy that goes mass, and thus adoption takes place. Now, we always built on a, yes, it's tech. However, it is based on a conventional legal base, on a conventional legislative process and approach. And we always wanted to deal with the big question, that is, how secure is a token holder with a real estate asset as a backing? So, a tokenized real estate, a token that is a property token, what does it hold of the token? And rightfully, it has been believed all through that it holds very little of a token. Now, it is unfortunate that plenty of, or it's not about unfortunate, I believe every technology and every innovation starts there. It usually is not so established. Many players come in, some of them understand real estate, some of them do not, some of them understand tech only. Over here, we're dealing with uh, prop tech at a different level. It's real estate, and real estate from an investment point of view, as well as an asset with utility, as well as the digital aspect and the technology aspect of it. So we always wanted to make sure through our process, and that's why we followed the process that we followed through corporate resolution. We tokenized economic rights of properties. So we were very careful not to touch the wrong edge of any laws or legislative frameworks. And we have tokenized those economic rights through corporate resolution, which is a document that has been utilized in companies for hundreds of years. Now, all through, that would be great. Yet, would an institution purchase a token of a property where that property can still float on the market, and the right of the institution will need to be pursued through courts? Not really. Generally, even investors, I'm an investor, and I would want more security than that. And here it is. We've sorted it out. What we've done is we've registered. It is the first tokenization instance to be registered on the land registry, and it's the European Land Registry. Thus, it can be duplicated all through the European Union, as well as all through the rest of the world. Again, where it permits, depending on the land registry laws and rules and how does the process work. But eventually, we'll get there with everywhere. Today, we have done that notarization, that registration, that impact to the land registry, which is very important. In other words, an owner of a token today have that interest registered on the land registry. So that is the perfect marriage of futuristic tokenization, fractionalization, and the traditional ownership of real estate that's considered low risk and a must need for everyone. So when you want to democratize something, you want to do it safely, especially when it touches the masses, but more so when it touches the public in different parts of the world. And this is what we do through tokenization.
Right.
So it's a big achievement. Not only for us, it opened the door for all others to hopefully go the same route, to go the route. And that's why most of what we have is open source. You go through our docs, you will understand our whole
Mm,
procedure. And people ask us, don't you think that that's proprietary? And we say, our challenge today is making sure that it goes mainstream.
mm.
And we only can do that with everyone who people would think of as a competitor. Today, no one is competing with us. We're all competing to make sure that the industry thrives and the industry is adopted
Mhm.
mass. So it's pretty important and significant.
I agree. A couple of months ago, when we interviewed the CEO of Good Blocks, Madam Yale Tamar, she's also doing similar kinds of things, digitizing real estate and using tokenization. Right. I asked her a similar question. Now, you did mention a lot of challenges within the first answer in itself, but let's break it down a little bit. What are the major challenges that you face in terms of protecting token holders' rights and mitigation risks?
We sorted it out. So there has been challenges with this notarization, with that registration of the instance on blockchain. We've sorted it out. Okay. Now, why are we able to do that? Because of what we follow. Now, I do understand that many parties do have an approach to tokenization. And some companies try to run on the NFT boom somewhere here or there and utilizing non fungible or fungible tokens in a way that does not have always to be the best use of that technology. We were adamant since the beginning to make sure that whatever we put through is compliant, is protecting, and is clear, transparent to parties. If there is protection somewhere, it is. If there's a challenge in the protection, it is. With the notarization, we've sorted that. So we could say today, whoever buys a token with that impact on the land registry, with that
Mm,
notarization, does not anymore have to pursue his rights through courts. It's registered. Now, obviously, stays the real estate risk if there is a property that can drop in value or grow in value, and all of those real estate risks that are part of the characteristics of the asset class it is, and the dynamics that surround that. But from a tokenization aspect, we were able today to record in a conventional manner the non-conventional token that is held and all the rights that are held within
mm.
it.
Um, Again, let us break it down a bit. You see, in the world of REITs, right, real estate investment tokens, right, they have been in existence, I think, pre-blockchain era as well, right? So how does Blocksquare prioritize real estate offerings, and what infrastructure has been established to ensure security and regulatory compliance in the realm of real world asset tokenization?
Okay, so let me separate the question into two parts. Real estate investment trusts, REITs, as well as crowdfunding solutions exist since a good amount of time. REITs obviously existed pre-tokenization, pre-fractionalization, pre-crowdfunding, and REITs are vehicles that are utilized all over the world, and they're huge generally, and they do own and possess ownership and management of some of the best property globally. Yet, tokenization is can be a value add to REITs and to crowdfunding solutions. Tokenization is not there to, it's a tool. Technology is a tool. It's not a fancy thing that's for tech. Yeah. Tech matched with an asset that is as amazing as real estate. Um, if used right, you can change fundamentally the asset class characteristics. And this is something I always talk about. There's characteristics of the asset class, and some of the characteristics are pros, some of the characteristics are cons. That's why people say equities are better than real estate. You ask them why, they tell you they're perfectly priced in the market. There is a perfection on the pricing. They can't be, or they're rarely mispriced. At the same time, it's very liquid and it's not bulky. Imagine you can do that to real estate.
Hmm.
So imagine you can create that ultra asset class. Now, yes, that can be done. That can help REITs, can help crowdfunding solutions, can help all conventional buyers of real estate. Now, to tackle the second part of your question, where we talk about how secure it is and how um, how possible is it to have the public buy into a tokenized asset in a secured manner, in a right
Right.
manner. So the minute you're able to do what we've done, the risk that anyone is taking in a tokenized property exactly is the same level of risk that he would take buying the same interest in a conventional non-tokenized manner. It's the same, because the challenge there used to be procedural. You buy something that's detached from the asset, the underlying asset. Call it a token, call it a note, call it whatever. If it's detached, you need to go and prove right, and you go prove right through a lengthy process in court. Once you notarize it, once you register it on the land registry, in other words, there can't be movement on that asset without that right being fulfilled. So the risk becomes the conventional risk, the exact conventional risk, nothing more, nothing less.
Interesting.
So,
Right.
how secure becomes the exact conventional secure and security level and comfort level for people.
Interesting. Could you explain the concept of real estate tokenization and how it has been a cornerstone of Block's Square's strategy? What benefits does it offer to your investors and your stakeholders? Because you gotta have to answer to them as well, right?
So, let's talk about tokenization. What is tokenization? And how is it utilized? And how can it be utilized in the future? Now, obviously, yes, you can create a token for a property, similar to a note to a property. That token is a digital representation of that property. Is that the ultimate use of tokenization? Not really. There's plenty of uses that you can create around it. I call it creating structures for no need for a structure. So it's similar to in the investment world, you create an investment structure that's pretty complex. It most of the time serves only the investment manager's interest, no one else. And in the tokenization world and the tech world, people do the same sometimes. If we want to talk about tokenization with the maximum potential it does offer, we talk about tokenization with fractionalization in it. So let's talk about fractionalization first. Fractionalization is taking an asset and dividing it into plenty of pieces. How do we do it as Blocksquare? We divide each asset to 100,000 tokens. So 10,000 tokens resemble 10% of the asset, 100,000 tokens resemble 100% of the asset. Pretty simple and straightforward. Now, every token is the fraction represented on chain. Why is it represented on chain? It's immutable, it's tradable in split of second, it's recorded again immutably on IPFS, and on chain. Every single part of that asset, including all the rights, economic rights that are from utilization to rental, returns to capital appreciation, all of those we've recorded through a corporate resolution and we've tokenized. So it's all the set of economic rights behind the asset. So there's an asset, there's a deed or a title, depending on the jurisdiction you're in and the legislative framework you're in, and there is the consumer or the investor. Now, what we've done, you can't touch the title, you can't touch the deed. In most countries, it's illegal, it's a crime to do so. If you touch the deed, you need to impact the register. Now, for the past few years, we couldn't impact the register. Now we can, thankfully. However, what we've done is we've come and tokenized the economic rights which are held by the deed and passed those on to to chain through a corporate resolution. A corporate resolution is a resolution that a company issues, does at the agreement of the board. It can be the board can be the sum of owners or otherwise, and directors. And that corporate resolution passes on those rights to whatever note it is or whatever promise it is. And here it's the token. So if they tokenize 100% of a property, that's 100,000 tokens issued, and the 100,000 tokens hold the 100% of that property's financial rights and all what it represents. Now, that is tokenization. What does it represent to us as a company? What does it represent to our stakeholders? Every single party member of blockchain team and also member of blockchain community of Blocksquare community knows and believes that we are tackling the future. We're not tackling the coming $100 million. We've already tokenized around $80 million of property in plenty of countries all over the world, every continent you can think of approximately. However, we're tackling the few billions and then the few
Mm.
trillions. When we look at real estate market, it's a 250 to 600 trillion market, depending on when are you looking at it and what valuations are you following. That size of a market, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, estimates the total tokenization market within the coming few years to be $3 trillion. Now, we believe the minute it blows up and it goes much faster, much bigger, and it has the potential to do so. Over the past few months, every major institution in the world is talking tokenization. And I don't want to mention institutions, but every single one of them. In the investment business, in the banking business, they're talking tokenization. Tokenization of assets allows you to go on
Mm.
steroids, allows the asset to go on steroids. We're not about hype. We're about fundamental benefit to the communities, including our community, including our stakeholders. We're a company that has built on solid ground since day one. We've never, since day one, built over a hype. We never matched a hype cycle. We've never been a hype runner. And we always built based on that type of fundamental
Mm.
approach. And thankfully, that type of fundamental approach, we were able to achieve what we've achieved, and we continue to do so. Our stakeholders are pretty happy with the progress over the past few years, especially that we're not only a company that's creating technology for the future, we're a company that's creating technology that's working today as we speak. Today, you can go in and buy assets
Mm.
securely. Now, when you talk about security, all our smart contracts are audited by Hacken. Anyone who knows smart contracts and auditing of smart contracts obviously knows Hacken. It's the auditor of choice when it comes to smart contracts. Every single other piece we do, every single other um, process we launch is really very well vetted through our team. Our team consists of people who came from asset management and risk management to real estate to legal to tech frontiers. So we're pretty solid there, and we plan to continue being solid going into the future.
Fair enough. Your recent blog post mentions that the legal system has introduced protective measures for parties exposed to risk in real estate business. Could you elaborate on these protective measures and how they relate to token holders in a blockchain based real estate tokenization scenario?
Sure. So, look, let's think about it in a very simple way. Everything tokenization should represent everything conventional. In other words, every token, as we said, rights, liabilities, and all the security it should hold is what's held generally in the open market. The regulators are have a duty. The regulator's duty is to protect communities, protect the public in general. At the same time, they regulate to make sure that it's not the wild, wild west out there, because we tend as human beings to go into the wild, wild west whenever there's an opportunity. That said, by the way, uh, uh, um, we're guilty not to do that. Probably as people, myself, I'm so fundamentalist and I'm very conservative. However, the people who innovate and who create and who inspire are those mostly who go and create things as if we are living in the wild, wild west. Hopefully not. We are the guys who follow the super compliance, super fundamentals. Now, what the regulators are trying to do, again, the regulators need to understand something well to be able to regulate properly for it. You cannot use the old taxi regulation for an Uber built taxi economy or transport economy. You would need to have new regulation that matches that. And similarly here, you would need sometimes to reform regulations that are regulations of yesterday, sometimes to upgrade them, and sometimes to scrap them and create new sets of regulations. Most important for the regulator is to protect the public. And to protect the public, they are trying to figure out ways to do so in a conventional manner. What we are doing at Blocksquare is we're trying to pass this on to chain. And this is why our tokenization took so much effort from our team to get there. And we were so insisting to get there and adamant to get there. And we didn't launch into public sale, although everyone in the world was launching public sale. And we have a technology which is way ahead of everyone else's approximately. But we still didn't launch a public sale of a meaningful asset until we were able to notarize and register. Why? Because we want to do it right. We agree the regulatory framework is not there yet, but it's getting there. That's one of the challenges, but that's one of the protective elements as well for everyone in the business, especially those who want to do it right. And at the end of the day, who will persist and thrive are those who are doing it right.
Right. So, I mean, regulatory frameworks, as you said, to reconstruct them, there needs to be a lot of lobbying involved. So, my next question would be, how does Block Square address the challenge of ensuring the same level of legal protection for token holders as provided in the traditional real estate transactions? What are the techniques that you guys are using for that?
If you look at our process, you will see that mostly we link everything to conventional. So, again, as I said a second ago, every single right that's represented in a property, in a conventional property, is now represented on chain in our token. Now, how do we do that? We do that through, and again, it's very easy to drift into the hype cycle. It's very easy to drift through that because it's more convenient for people and it's mostly more profitable in the short term. We insist to make sure, and here we are again, we created a process that is something that is approved and that's followed today in the corporate world. We created elements for that process and triggers to make sure that we create enough securities in it. And securities here, I don't mean securities, tradable securities. I mean the plural of security, of securing something. So
Don't worry, SEC is not
the
listening to this conversation.
thanks God. So the whole idea is what we have tried to do, and we continue to try and do, is we try to make sure that whatever we put out there is compliant, and we try to innovate within compliance. So what do we mean by innovate within compliance? Do I really need to wait until the regulator issues MiCA 1 and MiCA 2 and few other versions of MiCA? And that's appreciated and that's great. for me to say now there is a framework that works for me? Or shall I be innovative and push until I'm able to notarize a, or shall I go wild, wild west and tokenize and sell without that notarization and without anything similar to it? No, we haven't waited for the whole regulation to become perfect and do it, the Uber regulation, the future of regulation. We have not gone the wild, wild west and ignored regulation totally, because this is what many people say do. And they say, if there's no regulation, it means I'm compliant. No, it doesn't mean you're compliant. It means you're non-compliant, but there's currently no one stopping you. So we went compliant. We were adamant about it. We were sure to make it. And we followed the process required by the notary. We followed the process required by all parties to make sure that we reached there. And we will continue to do the same. And there's coming news that will impress and will secure people even further whenever they're trading or they're buying tokenized real estate, because we want to make sure that yes, it's becoming easier, but it's not becoming less secure. The convenience of it and the transparency of the trade and the transaction, because you can see it in a record, in a ledger in front of you, all of this, and you can buy wherever you are in the world, anywhere else in the world, in a split of a second, 24/7. Again, that's all great, but it doesn't have to come with the risk of less security and less safety doing that.
Okay.
And we believe we were able to, and we will continue to add to that, to sustain the level of security that's offered in conventional, in tokenization, in the future of real estate.
Mhm. Let's expand on that. A follow-up question, right? You mentioned corporate resolution. How does it fit in the equation over here?
Okay. So as we said, there's the title, there's the asset, and there's the consumer. Today, for that asset economic rights to be registered against a consumer or an investor, what happens is the investor comes and buys in, and then the title is moved into the name of the person who owns it. Now, today in business, if I want to pass on some rights that my company or of assets that my company holds or profits, I can issue a corporate resolution that transmits those rights to an individual. And you then can have a corporate right over whatever portion I have assigned to you as per that corporate resolution. It's actually a resolution where the board resolves and the directors and the board members agree that such right is passed on to you. Now, in real estate, this property is owned by a company and there's a deed there. The deed, as we said, should not be touched generally. So, what we have done is we came and created a corporate resolution, and by the means of the corporate resolution, we passed on those rights from the entity itself to the token holder. Now, stayed, that is not recorded on the register. The deed is recorded on the register, is reflected there. But that right that has been assigned by a corporate resolution, that economic right to a token, was not recorded. What we've come and done today is recorded that right on the register. It means a company issued a corporate resolution saying that X owns so and so right over this asset. We came and registered this against the register. Voila, you have a perfectly conventional transaction. The side of it that's not conventional is the utility side, the convenience side, it's the liquidity side, it's the transparency side, it's the front end of the transaction. Everything else is conventional.
So, are there any limitations to it? What limitations does Blocksquare face when tokenizing real estate assets owned by legal entities compared to those natural owned by natural persons?
Amazing question. Today, although we can tokenize property owned by a natural person, we cannot affect the same level of protection to token holders. in if a legal entity holds it, as we've demonstrated, it's fully secure as if you're buying conventional. Yet, if it is a normal person, securing those rights today in many parts of the world is not as easy, except in parts similar to Europe where you can record that right even if it's an individual. So if it's a natural person today, and there's many elements, by the way, too, and this is a very important subject to talk about here. There's many elements that guide this. Today, when you're not tokenizing real estate and selling tokenized real estate, you're not talking to one regulator. You're talking generally to two regulators. You're talking to the financial regulator and you're talking to the land registry, the party, the government entity that regulates that part of the industry. Now, this is a challenge. This is a big challenge. Now, for you to record that loan, call it a loan, against the asset, the title deed, in somewhere like Europe, for example, you can loan me money and I can record that interest on an underlying asset to secure you and your money back as an individual. I'll tell you about the jurisdiction I live in, our amazing city of Dubai. That is not possible. Why? Because first, anything credit is federal, so goes central bank, so you have now a third party involved. Second, because the framework that exists does not allow an individual to loan money in that direction and have a lien over a property, register that over a property. Why doesn't allow? Because it needs to have a banking license. And again, the regulator here is very cautious of making sure that things are done in a certain way. Thankfully, we are developing so fast. The acceleration of development in Dubai is amazing, second to none. Yet, we're not a system that's 400, 500 years old. So, those matters are developing as we speak. But in Europe, you can do that. In other jurisdictions, you can't do that. So, it stays a jurisdiction to another. Again, we are currently we are currently touching on very important things. We want to stay safe. That's why even when we go ahead and do this, we do it and we attempt it and we try it and we make sure it worked and then we launch it out to the public. So soon you may see something like that going out, hopefully.
Loan agreements can be used to strengthen the protection of token holders. Uh, could you provide more details on how these loan agreements work and their role in protecting investors?
Sure. It doesn't have to be a loan agreement. It can be many other types of agreement. However, a loan agreement obviously allows you in some jurisdictions to put a lien on an asset. And what you need as a token holder is to record a lien against a portion of the interest on the asset. Now, that portion of the interest, remember, the security in that is defined by the seniority of that tranche of capital in the capital stack. However, if you have that loan agreement, at least you are sure that one, no one can contract or no one can change that capital structure without your approval. One. Two, it means that your registered right is registered with the register. Three, it's a verifiable and it's tradable without you needing to go through a lengthy process of courts to achieve what is recorded with it. Now, so that's why a loan agreement is one of the simpler ways to be able to record interest against a token issuance or against any other agreement. If today you loan me money, forget about the tokenization, and I want to secure your right, I record a loan agreement against my asset. I notarize that. And that's one of the ways to support and protect individuals, investors, the public, and institutions buying tokenized assets and making sure that the owner, the title holder, complies with the rights of those token holders.
So, could you explain the importance of establishing a mortgage on the real estate in the context of protecting token holders?
Do you mean establishing a mortgage from on a real estate on a property that is not funded by a bank already, or do you mean establishing a mortgage generally on a property?
Let's go with the bank scenario.
Okay. So, by the way, if a bank have funded a property, we know a few things. One, generally, the due diligence on it has been done to a certain limit. That doesn't mean that we don't do our own due diligence, but that means that evaluation is done. Generally, the bank loan on it means, in general, the kind of equity that is held there is most of the time real equity. Again, all of those matter and differ between an asset and another, a time and another, and a country and another, and we look into the depth of those. When you look at Tokalytics and our head of risk, Daniel, you will see how do we look at every single side of of the assets being tokenized. But in general, if you have a mortgage registered against it, especially if the LTV, the loan to value, is low, you have a more secure asset. And if you record interest against that, you know that even if that loan is more senior, because generally it is the most senior, generally, not all the time, if it is the most senior, you register an interest, you have a very high viability of interest claim in the future. God forbid things go sour, but hopefully it doesn't. That's that's an item number one. Now, the existence of a mortgage or not does not stop you from recording a further interest, does not stop you from tokenization. So anyone who has a mortgage against his property can still
Mm.
tokenize. Yet, if somebody has an 80% mortgage against his property, the 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 equity left is under so much risk. So that second charge put on the property or second interest recorded is under so much risk because a small slipperage or change in value,
Could be astronomical.
a small one,
Yeah.
exactly. Second, even without that, you know that if a property owner defaults, the senior debt holder, which is the bank in this case, puts the property on auction. After it goes on auction, if it doesn't sell, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, it goes again on auction with a discount of between 10 and 50%, and that's by law. So if you have 80% mortgage, that's why we try to make sure that there's enough equity. If you look at the assets we tokenize, you would see 30% mortgage and 20% tokenized. That's less than 50%. You need not a market crash,
Can
you
you
need beyond a
can,
crash to start
can you repeat that
capital.
30% token and
Yeah, you'll see 30% mortgage, 30%. So if I go to one of the assets we've tokenized today, you'll see between 30 and 40% is the loan to value as a mortgage. Yeah, that's the percentage
okay.
of value of equity that is
Okay.
mortgaged. Now, you will see a tokenization instance of 10 to 20%.
Okay.
That keeps you under 50%. As long as you're under 60 or 70%, depending again on the jurisdiction and how volatile the market is, you're pretty secure.
And if
So
it goes
you don't
above
want to
board
be,
that, I mean, if the equilibrium goes above 60%, you should stay away from tokenization because it makes it more volatile. Are you trying to say that?
I wouldn't say you need to stay away. I would say it depends on your risk profile. I'm obviously not a buyer of that, and I'm a very conservative
Mm.
investor. And in everything I buy, I need a margin of safety and a proper margin of safety. So I wouldn't be the right, but people buy things that are backed by nothing even. So I wouldn't say that is for no one to buy and no one to do. I say I'm not a buyer. I wouldn't advise people to buy something that's this thin, um, because it's arrogant to think that we really can beat the market and make money with things this tight. However, what I would say is generally the market will receive the asset, and by the asset here I mean the tokenized part of the asset, because that's a digital asset that represents a real life, real world asset.
Mm.
The market will receive it based on what it compromises of: return, type of risk. The market assesses it. People out there are smart. No one is naive, has so much money and throwing it around.
Well,
Hopefully.
you're underestimating
Um,
the Wall Street bets guy. But
Unfortunately, I know. That's why I said hopefully. I followed up with hopefully after that. So, look, you know, they assess the kind of return matched with the kind of risk and the type of asset it is. as well as many other elements. Again, if you go through tokalytics, you will see the dimensions that we cover there. And by tokalytics, Daniel does an amazing job in slicing that asset and everything that surrounds it in a way that explains it to people in the best way possible. And neither of this is an advice to buy or sell or a trade or do anything like that. It's just informative for you to continue your due diligence. It should form part of your total overall knowledge creation and due diligence. Now, the tighter the asset is, the higher the risk, the lower the return, the less receptive the market would be. You can't expect the market to jump on and buy, or you may, just a token that on an asset that has 80% other loans more senior than you in the capital stack, and then the return is something like 3%,
Mm,
while they can get in a fixed deposit today something like 5, maybe in some parts of the world, or higher. So it needs to be logical. Tokenization is a tool similar to how REITs gave a
mm,
tool to own commercial real estate that's huge, that's usually for huge and giant institutions, to people who have smaller money. Private equity placements also gave a solution which is different. Crowdfunding gave a solution which is different. Each of those, as well as tokenization, has its pros and cons. Tokenization added to those gives you that element of solution
mm.
where you can solve many of those and create a product that's structured at such a high level where it gives you the pros of most and the cons of very few, if there is any left on the table. Or if there isn't, it means you can't find it, but there's obviously always is.
It's interesting. Do you believe that the proposed legal framework can be applicable in all jurisdictions? Can you discuss the adaptability of this framework to different legal systems and potential modifications required for local, you know, legislation compliances?
Sure. Currently, with things developing, brewing, whatever framework we create can work for some jurisdictions, but not others. As we mentioned, for example, Dubai and the UAE,
Mm,
and the special formalities that are required. The US is a different approach. Um, Other parts of the world may be different here and there, a little bit more towards Europe, or a bit more towards the US, or slightly behind on regulation. Regardless, with time, we will see more homogeneous approach to legal frameworks, similar to how everything starts. It starts with regulators moving towards or against at different levels and discovering it. And I always say people hate anything they don't understand. People cannot love things they don't understand. In Arabic, we say "Al-insan adu ma yajhal." If you don't understand it, you don't like it. You will hate
mm,
it, and that applies to everything. If you don't like it, or if you don't know it, you will hate it. And that applies to regulators as well. They're human beings putting their heads together to try and create something that's useful. So, yes, very soon you will see more homogeneous approach to that. Still, every jurisdiction will always have its identified differentiators depending on how strict they are or how not, and depending on how their legal framework and legal system works.
interesting. All right. What are the opportunities that Blockscare's achievement presents for investors, right, interested in engaging with the international real estate market through, let's say, blockchain based solutions?
My father, if owned a $50,000, would be able probably to buy a small apartment somewhere in some suburb or some
Hmm.
village, but wouldn't be able to buy a property or part of a property in New York, another part of a property in London, another part of a property in Dubai, another part in Singapore. Today they can. My father can do that today. Again, there's no this many properties tokenized by Blocksquare. It means that secure tokenized, because it's not only tokenized, you need the address for security. So when Blocksquare tokenizes property and publicly offers them in all of those markets, hopefully very soon, then my father will be able to do that. Will be able to do that and will be able to see and understand that much level of knowledge and transparency. How many times did you notice that somebody have bought a property and they discovered after that that the property they bought was overpriced by 5, 10, 15%?
A lot of times it depends on the negotiation also, right? Yeah, a lot of behaviors like
Have
that.
you ever seen an Apple shareholder buy an Apple stock at that moment of time mispriced?
It depends, yeah,
Unless there is a
market
mispricing in the
condition,
market.
and also if the analysis goes wrong, yeah, you can buy it in an expensive price and then regret it later.
But you buy it at what the market is selling at.
Yeah,
You wouldn't buy it at 10% more than your neighbor.
yeah.
But in real estate, you buy it at 10% more than your neighbor while you're buying at the same time, the same property in the same building.
Mm.
Why? Because it's an imperfect market. The level of transparency, and on Apple shares, you can see all the trades. You can see an order book and an order wheel. You can see all of those. In real estate, there's a lag. Even where there is data, there's a lag on data. Whenever you have a tokenization, a ledger that shows every single transaction, you are able to see all of this.
So
That level
this is
of
a good
transparency.
this is a great use case, as you said, that through DLT you could, you could put it into the ledger and everybody could access it, and it makes things transparent in terms of the price of the real estate. So the sales and the marketing gimmicks could fade away. Are you trying to say that?
I'm saying it will become more transparent. I'm sure human beings will find a way to create gimmicks within that.
Okay.
But if somebody wants to dig, it's much easier to dig and it's much more accurate. If today you're able to go in and see the 1,000 last transactions by the second, time batched, every single thing that happened, you have a bigger sample of trades. You have more clarity on it. You have also the same data of all the surrounding areas. I'm not saying that it will be foolproof from a gimmicky approach or a scammy
Mm.
approach. That is always something that human beings will manage to achieve, probably. But what I'm saying is that it will become much more transparent using that data. Now, there's other benefits also. There's other advantages. Yes, public knowledge, it's there, data is there, but there's also something called the liquidity premium. Do you know Monish Pobrai?
I haven't heard of him, no.
One of the best investment investors in the world. He is a fan of Charlie Munger, and I would say a student of Charlie Munger as well, and Warren Buffett. And when you look at Monish, he talks about auction-driven markets, and he says, "I couldn't have made the money anywhere else but equities, the way he've made it, because equities are an auction-driven market. The variance in equity values is huge sometimes. Just because it's auction-driven, it means the animal spirits of the public runs and pushes something way beyond it should be, or way below it should be, just because of the fear and the element of greed that sits on the table. Now, when you tokenize real estate, you can have that auction driven market as well. There's something called the liquidity premium. There's a US professor who've done a study on that. What is the premium that is possible just because we fractionalized something, we made it smaller slices, and we made it exist in a much easier way for it to be traded. So that's the liquidity premium. You throw more liquidity on something, more people can buy it, and it's much easier to buy, and that gives it the liquidity premium. So there is other benefits as well. The best about it is that regulators can regulate still
Mm.
who buys quotas. So see how open it is, and see how easy it is to subscribe in and to jump in and to buy and to sell. But still, if regulators, and they may want, and they do today, have quotas for certain areas, certain nationalities, certain approaches, certain type of buyers, and you can still have that. You can still have that because the token and the formula, what you create behind the token, can represent exactly what you want. The product of the token can act like anything in the capital stack, from a bond to a mezz funding to a senior funding to equity, common equity. It can act as any of those. That's the beauty of having a token. You have an instrument that you can let it play the music you want to hear and you want your public to
Mm.
hear. And it's all within your hands. Again, we support ultimate transparency and so much knowledge to everyone, but that does not mean that it restricts regulators from doing what they sometimes need to do.
Interesting. Final question, Mr. Hani. As the pioneer of notarized real estate tokenization, how do you envision Blocksquare's impact on the future of institutional real estate assets on a global scale? And what role do you see it playing in the industry going forward?
Our team at Blocksquare pioneering that aspect of um, the future of real estate, secured and notarized and registered. And here I say Peter and the hard work Peter did, Dennis and the hard work that Dennis did, um, is paving the road for everyone to follow a very simple process today. It wasn't simple when we followed it and when we were paving it, but today is a very simple process to achieve consumer protection, safety to a certain level, depending on, again, how it's structured, because the devil is in the detail at all times, and to be able to take tokenization of real estate mainstream so that when you sit with an institution or a savvy investor next time, you make sense. Because if you don't, they wouldn't buy into you. No one wants to take adventures with their money. I wouldn't take adventures with my money. My money is so dear to me, so dear, you have no idea. And for me to put a penny in a place, and to me, a penny is like $1 million. It's the same. If you are ignorant about a penny, you're ignorant about a million. Us doing that, Block Square paving that route, makes it easier for everyone to follow a route of more security, more safety. In other words, more adoption, mass adoption. And money is in mass adoption. Amazon is not built over huge profits from 10 customers. Amazon is built over very tiny profits over a very long period of time of very big base of clientele and many others. And this is why everyone is following big data. It's big. You want big, you need mass adoption. To have mass adoption, you need to do it right. Follow Block Square. We are doing it right, not only for us, hopefully for everyone else. Obviously, we are pioneers of it and we want to stay and we want to make most commercial sense for ourselves, our stakeholders, uh, people who've subscribed into us since the beginning, who were with us when there's winters, crypto winters, or digital winters. And they understood that we are a fundamental business that is revolutionizing an asset class that is one of the biggest asset classes, if not the biggest in
Absolutely.
the world.
Real estate.
So it's for everyone. And thank you all for all those support. The belief that we have within our community is amazing, is really amazing. It's inspiring. So we always thank them, and hopefully we'll stay on top of it. We surely will.
Fantastic. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A one on one conversation with Blocksquare's COO, Makram Hani. I want you guys to follow them on their socials. I think they can find the same name, Blocksquare. Also, if you want to have a look at all of the other podcasts that we have, you could scroll down and look at the other podcasts, like the one that we did with Vodafone or Ericsson, or Good Blocks as well. Similar podcasts, so you can get a more holistic view. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you for having us.